Hello, beautifuls. Welcome to the 13th of January, 2025. This is a time of about two-thirds the way through winter here in the Northeast. I am in the New York State, and I'm coming to you from the Nematon Mountain. And this time of year, we are delving into planting the gardens. We're delving into what's going on internally that might want to shift. We're giving ourselves a nice deep rest. There's also a lot going on. And so I want to touch in just a little bit on what a transit this week looks like. some energies and things that might be able to be um, felt in this week, and offering some thoughts in on what an inner cartography perspective, meaning an inner mapping of one's self, might look like in these times. So I want to kind of sketch a few things out for you. And because some of the places that I delve in, like astrology and human design and gene keys and emotional bridges and the I Ching, have so much details, I'm going to do my best to speak briefly about those transits, especially for those who already work with that, and then try to get to the meat of the point, like ways we can find it inside of ourselves, ways that we can journey with it in our own world and find that sensorial pathway to move along in order to be able to come into a different way of connecting with ourselves. So that's kind of my goal here. And something that I have been inspired to do is to make a cup of mountain tea and drink it while I am with you. This is easement tea that's made here on the mountain. It's rooibos that we bring in, and it's raspberry leaf and peach leaf, and a little bit of fig leaf for a little bit of that vanilla taste. Lovely, warming, uh, inspiring. I'm finding myself inspired on this day. Just as a little note as we step into this day that we are in, this Monday. It's a moon day. It's a Monday. It's also a full moon. It's a full moon in Cancer. It's a full moon in Cancer on a Monday next to Mars, who's sort of like Aries, the god of war, sitting in the kitchen cutting onions. It's a very emotionally, feely, frustraty, blubbery, whiny kind of energy. And I am here with you today in this way, in this space, because I done doing my move through that this morning. So I am bringing a witness with you with this moment that I am sharing. And just as a bit of a caveat, I live in mountain time, so I might have to pause things and tend a moose dog, or pause and do any number of things that come up. So if you see little changes in the video as I pause and shift if needed, it's a way for me to come into this space and practice presence without perfection, and being able to live in the practice of tending the daily life things that are happening here. So, welcome to this week. This week has a number of shifts and changes in it. It has a number of deeply catalyzing, shake you to wake you potentials for some, right? If you are a person who has many points, if you are a person who follows along and plays with charts, I'm going to talk about charts for a quick second. So there's plenty of information in this space, and journey supports that have nothing to do with charts. And I'm also going to take little moments here and there to speak about charts for those that do. When I talk about charts, I'm going to give you just a little peek. This is my multi-map chart that I'm in the process of bringing together. So this spins around, right? And we're sitting right now at that point, roughly. And so when I'm speaking about the mappings and the details and the nuances, this is what I'm looking at. I'm also the educational side of things, the nuance and the details is things that I dive into inside of Alchemy the Season School. And that's when we do that inner delve working during the wintertime, winter and early spring. And here, this is more of a toe dip into the energies that we might be experiencing. So, coming back into focus, I'd like to sketch out just a little bit of where we are chart-wise. We have the sun sitting over in Capricorn, over on the seventh house, inside of that space of committed relationships, one-on-ones, things that we are deeply invested in with the other, right? And this moon is happening directly opposite in the first house of I am, and it's in Cancer. And Cancer is all about feelings. Capricorn is all about feelings and groundedness, getting to the point, getting to the bottom line, tending to the details, tending to the nuances, taking things seriously. And so it's like being stretched in a sense. We're over on one side, the moon and the emotions and the Cancer and the Mars and the frustrations and our growths and our challenges and the things that ratchet our emotions. And on the opposite side, we have the sun, the shine, the way that we connect. Like when we're done playing with only ourselves and we want to connect with another, that's what's opening. And so it's inviting us and in some ways forcing some of us to deeply embrace and lean into what it is like to open to what one needs for oneself, our desires, our limitations, all of which, if we have them, are meant for us, right? Meaning our desires are not wrong and we are not broken because we have limitations. Both those things are deeply true. And on the other side of the coin, we have what's being illuminated. And through the course of this week, so today the moon is full and it's next to or conjunct Mars. Over Tuesday and Wednesday, it's going to become directly opposed, be challenged by, or have a light shown on. So we might find almost an amplification of this full moon energy as we go over through the next few days as it comes into more and more visibility. It's already a full moon that's illuminated, and now it's going to be conjunct a sun, a full moon still, and it's coming out of its peak, being illuminated by the sun. So what this can mean in our own self is looking for and being in attunement with what it is that needs attention to details inside of relationship and what it is that needs attention to as far as boundaries and containment, and what is it that is the ingredients that help to roll the self into the shape that it is here to be in. And as we breathe into both of those spaces, there's a lot that may come up. So just a couple of perspectives I may like to offer you in this moment. Where you find places like disappointment, ask yourself, am I in any way addicted to what disappointment gives me? Meaning, if we have experienced disappointment time and time again, we may find disappointment a familiar companion. And so, as life continues to give us familiarities and unfamiliarities, we may unconsciously, even subconsciously, in our bodies, find a resonance with the things that might actually disappoint us rather than bring us the thing that we are actually yearning for. So it's in this time of deep emotional access that we have the ability to go even deeper. You know, like I feel this thing about this person and this situation. Wonderful. That's the story. Now, what's behind it? The stories we form about emotions are not the emotions themselves. They are separate things. Yes, sometimes what we believe may trigger emotions, and sometimes emotions simply move through us, and we can choose to put stories to them or not. Becoming more aware of how our emotional system works is part of our responsibility. And when I say responsibility, and it's not meant to get all serious and shake finger in any way, it's meant to invite the ability to respond, to come more deeply online. What is it that you need in order to respond? I might offer that what I needed was to slow down and listen to my body. It tells me very quickly when something doesn't feel good. And there is a difference between something that generally doesn't feel good and something where my body's processing. So there's lots of nuances to learn in our systems. One of the first steps is learning to be comfortable with leaning in to where it is uncomfortable so that we can have the tenacity to ask questions like, why, where, and how might I be so familiar with disappointment that I invited into my world, for example, right? There's a lot of different ways in which we could ask difficult questions. That's simply one example. Look for a thing in your world that you are like, I continually experience this over and over again, and I am tired of this, and I would like this to stop. Sometimes it's the most difficult thing that we can feel, that if we turn towards that, that loudest speaking thing might very well be the thing that has been speaking for the longest duration of time. I shall be right back. I hear a moose dog. Hello again, and we're back. Let's tune into the sun for a moment. This is where there is the deepest focus of energy for the week. We got 70% of that neutrino stream coming through that sun energy. And that neutrino energy is what is composed of, in this realm and in this language, the closest we can get to is feeling its effects by, right? We're sort of talking on a quantum level when we're talking about neutrino streams. And I'm not going to go quite that deep in these conversations because that would make for a much longer video than we have time for today, than I have time for today. Let's just be real. So the sun, we're going to lens stack a few things. The sun's sitting over in the first house of I am. Oh, sorry. My bad. That's the moon. Sun sitting over in the seventh. Partnerships. The sun is also around gate 61, human design gene keys, moving into 60 later this week. Moving in on the 16th, Thursday. And so 7th, 6th, it's between 6th and 7th. So we're talking about relationships. We're also talking about the 6th, we're talking about our personal daily practices throughout the day, throughout our how we compose our day, how we walk through the inspirations and the challenges that life brings us. What is it that we do and handle inside of what life throws our way? And so with the 61 moving into the 60, we're moving from the head down into the root. We're moving from thinking down into an impulse and a drive to move. Now, that impulse to move, we're going to be met with limitations. That's what the 60 is all about, is experiencing limitations for the purpose of understanding a more realistic perspective. And that limitation side of things, it ultimately has this sense of justice that comes with it. And this justice can sort of be looked at from a couple of different perspectives. We can look at it with who gets what. We can talk about how people get treated. We can talk about how we handle wrongdoings, things that create harm, things that we decide as a collective or as a community or as a tribe or as a family or as an individual that we say no to. We can boil it down to what a wrong is for us is a no for us. Is that I cannot do that, right? And another version of it is a restorative nature, is a bringing into a relationship that both parties can be amicable with. And oftentimes that might mean a deeper degree of separation. That might need to be time, distance, topics. So, in order to be in right relationship with another, there might need to be topics that aren't discussed because there is not a frequency that's met there, right? To have certain things that you talk about with some people and other topics that you don't talk about with them, and then over here you do, it's that works just fine in our world, right? There's so many different ways of who we are. And I know how we can long to have and find all parts of what we look for inside of each person that we meet. And that's simply not the way it happens. We are each so individually composed. And that composition that we come in relationship with and then have a frequency resonance with is part of how we build interdependency. We need to find who our tribe is, who we vibe well with. And vibe well with is one that we can work with. That doesn't necessarily mean you are completely devoid of anything negative inside of your system ever. Because the thing is we might be reacting inside of our own system to what life is and what our mechanics are that may or may not speak to the people that we are encountering. And it may. Learning that discernment between those two inside of our daily practices, inside of our emotionality, how our system sets off. Learning to recognize, how do you feel when you're alone? How do you feel when you're around anyone, like a big group of people? Go to a Starbucks or a grocery store or someplace where there's a lot of people and simply feel how you feel around large mass energy. And then go be by yourself, and it can take a little while to like shake off that energy of others and then really find, how do you feel alone underneath of all of what everything and everyone else brings into your world? Because people bring things simply by being present, right? Our energy has conversations that we may not even be aware of, subconscious conversations, because of the energy that we each carry. Sometimes these lead to really profound levels of growth that may have uncomfortable moments. Sometimes there are glaring red flags around things that are unhealthy for us, period, that we either get to pay attention to or that we might miss. There are gifts available to ourselves inside of our experiences, inside of our challenges lies the strength to our gifts. It's being inside of, part of, and with asking questions of our emotions that gives us a deeper access into what's being asked for inside of our system. Let me see if I can give you a moment of practicality. Let's say that Jerry has just started a new relationship with a partner. Jerry is inside of this relationship with this person who we are going to call I'm looking for a gender neutral name because the thing is it's not about masculine and feminine at this point, even though that is also a polarity. We'll just say Jerry and G. So Jerry and G each are aware that the other is in their own journey, and they've decided to come into deep relationship with each other, knowing that their relationship has its own deep intensity because there's lots of spiciness that goes on between the two of them. And they each have their own potency and their magic, right? Jerry, G, their connection, their relationship. And there's also like how they see each other. They really value what the other person brings into the world. They also value what each person brings into the relationship. And then what happens with the third being that gets formed inside that relationship. Now, that might be themselves as a power couple as they go out into the community and they're bringing their fire spinning and they're bringing their attire, their how they present themselves. They're bringing their fullness that they have to bring, and so they are this presence, and that presence has its own energy, right? And so let's say that these two beings are trying to have a deeper understanding of each other while they're both going through a growth arc themselves. And in this process, Jerry starts to have uncomfortable feelings around where his world is and where his life is going and what he's going to get accomplished. And G's holding space for this whole journey. And Jerry goes, okay, well, I just don't really understand it. There's all these things that I'm feeling and these things coming up from the past. And G goes, well, what do you think they might mean underneath of it all? And he goes, well, I don't know. They're just, I just feel this way. I'll just cry or I'll feel really agitated about something. And G says, well, let me know the next time it happens. Maybe I'll just sit and be with you for a moment. I'm having a sense of deja vu here in this moment. So next time it happens, Jerry goes, hey, G, it's happening again. I'm just, And G goes, all right, man, let's sit down for a second and go, all right. I'm frustrated at this cup that would not sit on the counter. It just kept falling over. What does this frustration moment remind me of? Jerry goes, all right. All right, it reminds me of my mom. And every time she would remind me, I haven't done the dishes when I was a kid. And I'd be like, I know, I was just about ready to go do it. And now I don't freaking want to do it. And it just, and that frustration of almost being able to execute a thing and then, I can't do it. It's like, and G goes, like you're not able to commit? Jerry goes, yeah. Like I can't seize the thing that I need to. All I have is this emotion about not being able to. She kind of nods and wraps her arm around her friend. Says, yeah, it really, I know that feeling inside myself. Murph. In that process, later throughout the day, Jerry got thinking, huh, my mom, frustration, being told to do something that I'm already in the middle of. And he remembers something he'd been reading around different kinds of ways that people function neurologically. And he'd heard of this thing that he had remembered called PDA. One version is pathological demand avoidance, and the other one is pathological drive for autonomy. And he goes, okay, so I really need things to be my way. Well, that's kind of uncomfortable. And he sits with that for a little bit. And he explores, why does he need things to be his way? Well, when he has all of his stuff lined up, ready to go, when he needs to leave the house or have something to go to be mailed or taken care of, he's learned over his life that by attending to the details, things get done. And so that need to attend to the details has crossed over into multiple parts of his life around needing things to be a particular way. And so rather than judging how he is in that way, he becomes curious. Why? What does that serve me? Not so much, why am I like that? I mean, that may get you somewhere. To ask how it serves you. To ask how it serves you invites a very deep ponder around things that we might not otherwise ever look at, like how does disappointment serve you? How does staying in pain serve you? How does holding on to a belief that no longer serve, how is that serving you actually? Because we can hold on to things that are not good for us. And we can hold on to them in just simply unconscious ways, as in we don't recognize that we react the same way every time. And if we simply come to an awareness of, oh, I'm reacting. Oh, I'm reacting that way. Oh, it stops becoming an automatic and it moves from the unconscious into the conscious. Subconscious is a little harder. Subconscious is like sometimes part of how we are wired. And yes, there are things about ourselves that we cannot change, but how we are wired. And yes, there is only so far in which we may be able to evolve at any given time, lest these vessels no longer do the thing they need to do that keeps us alive and well on this plane. Right? If we push the vessel too hard, we may not be able to ride in it for long. And if we do not deal with and tend with the things that are coming up and out because of what is around us, we may find ourselves so repressed that the opposite happens and we still don't live a full life. I don't want to scare you. I do want to invite a deeper delve into what it can look like to dance with inspiration and realism. When Jerry got to having a deeper understanding of what to him felt like crazy, felt like a psychosis in his brain, something that he couldn't make any sense of, when he got to delve deeper into what was going on, what was the limitations inside of his being, what is it, a sense of justice that was trying to come out, that persistent drive for autonomy may very well be one's personal system seeking to preserve what it takes in order to be able to bring forth into full function what someone is capable of. And so before we go dismissing or disregarding these elements that we are, that may or may not be seen as desirable in some places, the more we might have a chance of seeing the value of what we are bringing that may go deeper than we can see. And that is a big part of what this time is here to show us. You feel into what else wants to be shared. Later in the week, so this earlier part of the week, I'll talk a little bit about Venus and Jupiter, and then Venus and Saturn. Venus and Jupiter so Venus is our love and our values, and Jupiter is about our expansions. It's also about our laws, the laws that we need to follow and attend to in order for things to go well when we come before Saturn, which is the strict one. It's the one of, have we met the bottom line? Capricorn sets the bottom line. Saturn says, have we met the bottom line? So Venus this week, or in this early part of this week, is kind of like soft and sensual and expansive and has this energy of like, we've been here before. Early part of the week is about gate 37 and loyalty and friendship and connectivity and from the heart and feelings and solar plexus and all of that kind of energy. And then we switch to the head. And so then we have Venus in 63, gate 63, and it's that head thinky, doubt, suspicion, inquiry. It's where we ask more questions in order to get to the bottom of what gets to come next, as far as how we value and bring value out into the world. And so that inquiry can be very internal. It can also be external. We may inquire of others deeper ways to understand how we may or may not be able to be in deeper relating with them. It's also giving us these places of where we can question ourselves and or situations that we're getting involved in. So when you feel yourself doubting yourself, like here's an example. Imposter syndrome. Who here has ever felt like they didn't belong here doing what they're doing? Or that they belong here doing what they're doing and it feels so enormous that they are not up to the task. They're not They don't feel like they can meet it. That's what the 63 is. The doubt goes, are you sure you can do this? Are you sure? Are you really sure? So we're still in Pisces energies, right? So Venus is still in Pisces. We're swimming in the deep depths of what it is that is valuable. What is what is of value to us? And it's that time of being asked, are you sure? What is this going to look like? So as we move deeper into the week, we get challenged with the questions around what is it that we find valuable? And are we meeting that? For example, to be a friend. To be a friend is about a mutuality. Now, I would say that many people are friends and they don't go through this level of thinking about things, and they may not even necessarily care what another person brings into their world, and another person might deeply care. So I'm giving you a story. Know that there's a range of spectrums in which people can do a thing. Take a sip of tea. Mm, reminding my thought. Hmm. Well, it went flying out my head. If someone reminds me, I will comment on it later. Um, let's move to the last piece that felt really important to share. The directional energy in the environment around us has had a subtle shift from where it's been for the past couple of years in yourself and relationship, self and relationship, self and relationship, Aries and Libra. And Aries and Libra has been North Node and South Node for some time now. And while we're still in the same gate of 2546, um, love in its fullest form and delight in the body. It's also seriousness. There's many pieces wrapped up inside of that. And 40 and what has changed is that it has been in Aries and Libra, and now it's in Pisces and Virgo. So Virgo's in the south, which is kind of the past and moving away from things. And Virgo has to do with attending to details and perfection and a kind of nuance and precision, moving away from. And Pisces is more about feeling. It's more about coming in tune and in touch with, again, how that solar plexus system works inside of ourselves. If you're a human design sort of person, you can go take a look at the solar plexus in your human design chart. So if you look at the center of this multi-map here, that's the solar plexus over here. That center has a number of gates in it. And any of those gates that you have defined may well be things that you experience on a consistent way when it comes to feeling emotions. And knowing what planet that's in, and then knowing what planet that house is in inside the astrology chart, and knowing what center that's in inside of the human design chart, and knowing if and where it shows up in your gene key chart. Oh my goodness, can tell you such a wealth of information about so many pieces. This nodal energy, knowing where your nodes are and where they point can be really helpful. The nodes as they are happening right now are sitting in the 10th house. The north node, the forward movement, is sitting up in the 10th house, and it is in the gate 25. And in the 10th house, we are moving forward towards education. We're moving forward towards bringing our gifts into the world, stepping into recognition, stepping into coming out of the shadows. It can be really hard for me to come on these kinds of videos, and I'm coming back around in this Mars retrograde. This Mars retrograde is going right over my sun and my Mercury and my North Node and my Mars. It's cranking through so much of my chart. And me coming in and doing this is actually me revisiting retrograde, an old idea and concept around coming in and living in transparency around how around what I know, what I feel, what I sense, and doing so in ways that are less about the details and the stories of my own interpretations, and more about the takeaways and the things that Spirit says, this one's really important. Just go on and share and just do the thing. And so this is that process for me, allowing that Piscean energy to kind of move me forward in an unknown way. Look at where that is for you, for your chart. And if you're not a chart person and you're like, I just can't do that, and I would also like to have a sense of something, ask yourself, what's the hardest thing to do that you've been putting off? Is it a conversation with someone? Is it a conversation with yourself? Is it cleaning out a particular drawer or closet or room? Is it tending to a bill or a phone call or a piece of business that hurts or that feels overwhelming? Those simple things, those practical, everyday, day-to-day things. There's so much of the magic of life in our day-to-day. I would say that magic in life is right here. And while so much of what we see around us may be an illusion, the truths that we have to work with are here inside of ourself and inside of what we can sense and work with. The choices that we make, the understandings that we find ourselves into. I love what kindness and compassion can create. And so those are some of the things that I will be bringing more into my world, as well as a deeper transparency with boundaries. And what do they mean? And why do I need them? And why do I need to share them? And why do I think we should all be sharing them with each other? Why I think it's important to have difficult conversations. This awareness process of stepping deeper into understanding who we are is something that I am so passionate about. And it's something that in some ways is very difficult for me to play with and feel. And it's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about it. To give a bit of a clue for those who work with astrology, depending on which systems I'm looking at. If I'm looking at the Placidus astrology system, my sun, my North Node, my Mercury, um, all of those bits are up in the 12th house. Leo is in the 12th house for myself. I'm a triple Leo. And there's a deep interrelational with what it is like to feel and then allow the pause without needing to fill it, to allow the words to come for what is felt. Sometimes it is so much easier to just avoid the feelings or to rush to find language that is approved or that is just a certain way rather than a rawness. And I know we need to find our rawness. To find our rawness is to find our roar, and to find our roar is to bring who we are fully to the table. That is what we need going forward. So that's what I'm bringing. And I'm going to be wrapping this session up here shortly. Share a last sip of tea with you. Hope you're doing really yummy things for yourself this evening. Maybe that's a deep dive into some of these questions and ponders. Maybe that's a hot cup of tea and a snuggle with a furry one. There's one up on the loft bed over there. Maybe it's a ponder with a candle staring into the firelight. I wish you many blessings on your journey this full moon. If you find yourself, we are, so Cancer, Capricorn, Cancer, Capricorn, if you are early or late degrees of Cancer, Capricorn, um, uh, Libra, Aries, Pisces, Virgo, any and all of those may be feeling this time intensely. Reach out to ones who you know might be feeling things. If you are feeling things, I send a hug your way. I know what it is like to feel alone, and I'm never truly alone. All right, beautifuls. Until soon.